So let's talk about the Virginia ad where Winsome Earle-Sears tells or asks Abigail Spanberger, do you support removing Jay Jones from the ticket for what he said about the speaker? And there were nasty things to say. Now, not to blame the victim, but the speaker at the time was, I wouldn't invite him to a barbecue. He was a hyper-partisan doofus, an asshole. So, I mean, yeah, nobody deserves what was said, but he certainly is not an innocent victim. So, but that's not the point. The point is that the lieutenant governor is the highest ranking woman to ever serve in a statewide office in Virginia. Historic. You know, thank you, Lieutenant Governor. And she's a veteran. Veterans benefit from what's called affirmative recruitment. It's also called DEI. In fact, I lost a position to a veteran once, and I don't mind it at all because he earned it by his service. And, you know, I thank Winsome for her service. But, you know, I didn't serve, but I was this close to a Navy ROTC scholarship. I just, you know, decided not to do it. I probably regret that decision now because I'd probably still be in the Navy, and I'm 60, so, you know, I'd have a good job right now. But be that as may, Abigail did not serve, but she was a spy and a police officer, and she's known for supporting veterans' rights, which is, you know, supporting women and supporting veterans are the two biggest parts of DEI. You know, I'm not going to get into the other factor because it's not a significant number. You know, it's veterans and women. This is what Pete Hegseth is going after. This is what Donald Trump is going after. I mean, he thinks it's about race. It's not. It's about gender. It's about veterans. You know, veterans preference is the largest benefit. You know, 5 points. It's not even a recruitment. It's a score enhancer. So, and again, it's justified. And the Republicans are attacking it. And the sitting lieutenant governor, you know, joined a Republican attorney general's letter excoriating Costco for having DEI and saying they should stop it. So he supports the anti-DEI agenda, meaning he supports attacking veterans and women. Now, the highest level succeeding woman in Virginia politics, and I used to be, and still occasionally am, a political operative. And, you know, we love recruiting women in both parties. And we love recruiting veterans. That's a bump. You know, I mean, Winsome Earle-Sears is benefiting from the fact that she was a veteran. That's helped her as a Republican. So, you know, how can she call for Abigail to not ask Jay Jones to leave the ticket for an anonymous email? Not anonymous, but an email that was not meant to be made public, versus her support of an attorney general that she served with, who is against her interests, is against against veterans, against women. Two things that she actually is proudly, looking at as first. Well, she would be the first woman governor, and not the first veteran, but she would be a veteran. And again, in politics, we love our veterans. You know, a military officer, hell, that's what got Pete Hegseth the job, for God's sakes. He was a veteran. They needed one. Now, he's a crappy Secretary of Defense or Secretary of War. I'll even give them the brand naming. He doesn't realize that he's a DEI hire because he's a veteran. You know, it's good to have a veteran serving as the Secretary of War. It's almost a requirement. Actually, sometimes it can't be because, you know, you can't do that. There are prohibitions in the law against somebody like being a high-level general, and then you've got to like be out of the service for a period of years before you can then be the SecDef. I'm not sure that applies. Did Hegseth have to get a legal exemption? I don't know. That'd be interesting to see. He should have. I mean, the spirit of the law was that he would have to, even though he wasn't a flag officer. He wasn't even field grade, but yeah. So it's, you know, she's not calling for Miyares to leave the race. By the standard she's using, I mean, you know, somebody's done something unconscionable while serving in public office and not supporting veterans and not supporting women being affirmatively recruited is disqualified, especially if you are a woman and you're a veteran. I mean, how does she support this guy? How does she support these policies? And why is she, you know, she needs to say, I'm sorry, Jason, you know, you've had your time. You did a bad job because you did not support veterans and you didn't support women. And Abigail supports veterans. Of course, she supports women. And whoever wins that race is going to be the highest ranking woman in Virginia history for statewide office. Not counting Hillary. Hillary actually won Virginia. So yeah, as a woman, so she won as a woman statewide. So she's had the highest, you know, the first person elected statewide as a woman. Yeah, so maybe twice even. So yeah, maybe 3 times even, because I think she won Virginia, you know, in the Virginia primary when she was running against Barack. So, but as far as federal office and state office, you know, Winsome is the most successful woman. And she's supporting somebody who actively, as a matter of policy, is somebody who didn't do his job in supporting Virginia. Because we are full of veterans. We have a lot of women too, in public office, in public service, in the public sector, as generals, as senior executive servants. You know, it's a big part of the Virginia constituency. We are a military state. If any state is pro-military, it is Virginia. And to support somebody who's against the hiring of veterans and women in a state that's full of people who were recruited as veterans and women. I mean, it was like both as elected officials and as civil servants. You know, they were affirmatively recruited. That's DEI. So again, it's time for ending the double standard and not supporting attorney generals, and maybe get rid of the person who's done a bad job because he supported the president who's doing a bad job. So, you know, I hope somebody, you know, with a bigger microphone than I do calls Winsome on this, calls the lieutenant governor on this, you know, because the Honorable Mrs. Earle-Sears is projecting a double standard for her attorney general nominees. So, you know, that should stop. Now they could decide to not air that, why didn't you do that? When there's a lot more reason to not support Miaras than there is to not support Jay. Because frankly, the Lieutenant General, the Attorney General's job is to support Virginia in national things, including making sure that people in the Pentagon who are veterans get the job if they were required, and defense contractors. There's a preference for them for veterans, women too, but mostly veterans. And Pete's a veteran and he doesn't support veterans. Yeah, there's a little cognitive dissonance here. Let's just say that. That's the polite way of saying it. The H word, hypocrisy, yeah, that's could be said. That can be said, but there's a little cognitive dissonance in the Republican Party in supporting a candidate who's against people who are Republicans, who have DEI preferences. It just boggles the mind. So, yeah. Happy weekend. Hopefully someone sees it and passes it along. I'm definitely going to send a link to the congresswoman's campaign. So yeah, because Miaras, he has lost his chops to serve Virginia, because he's not serving Virginia. He's serving the Republican Party, and they're not the same thing anymore. And he shouldn't benefit from a scandal when his entire service as Attorney General has been a scandal. So, especially the last year, the past year, it's been a scandal. He could have been the voice of sanity for Virginia, telling Trump and Hegseth, knock this off, moderating, being a leader. Miaras is no leader. He's a partisan stooge. So let's remember that on Election Day, shall we? And support Jay, because he quietly sent something that he didn't think anybody would read about somebody whose wife deserves protection, and he doesn't deserve assassination, but he definitely deserves scorn. Because he was, he was a very partisan speaker in a state that was in transition. He did not reach across the aisle. And he could have. So, yeah. See you on Election Day. Well, you won't, because I'm in Maryland now, but I'll see you on TV.